Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome, one and all, to a special Wednesday matinee edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dobular, of course.
Hello.
Russell on his new throne, the new gaming chair. Look at that. Look at that.
Well,
Lord Dobular.
I figure if you're going to be sitting 15 hours a week minimum for the foreseeable future, you kind of need to give your ass a rest.
That's true.
That's what Ritchie Torres said.
Yeah, that's true. You got to take care of your mouth and your ass. You know, those are two bit. You know, we use our mouths, but we also use our asses. You know, and sometimes it's hard for people to tell which one we're talking out of. You know, but we do our best to make that difference as clear for you as possible, But yeah, we do have a great show today. Are you wearing a fire department shirt from one of the live shows?
I am. I'm wearing the Coney Island one.
Oh, look at that.
Which I'm particularly proud of because I love Coney Island. I go there on my birthday every year.
Yes. Yeah, that was a great shirt. I'm wearing the shirt I wore at the Vega fundraiser. But not one that one that anybody gave me.
Oh, the watermelon one?
No, the Vega fundraiser.
Right. And I drove today for the first time in probably over 12 years, maybe 15.
Oh, wow. I'm surprised you made the show. Surprised you're not in the hospital.
You know, it is true what they say. It is like riding a bike.
Yeah.
Like actually, this was overkill. Like I signed up for 3 classes to get back to just kick the rust off. Yeah, I didn't need 3 classes. That was fine.
What about parallel parking?
I didn't. So I was just going to say, I didn't even fuck up the parallel parking. First try.
Wow.
I never hit the curb. That was fine.
When I was one time, I only had ever one mishap when I was parallel parking. I got greedy. I tried to get into a spot that was just too tight, but it was right in front of my building in Brooklyn. So I tried doing it anyway. So I go to parallel park behind this white Mercedes. It was like a Mercedes. I don't know what it was. It wasn't an SUV. It looked like a station wagon almost, but they don't make station wagons. I forget what it was. Some Mercedes hybrid thing. White Mercedes, beautiful white car. And I go to pull in, and I just didn't have enough room, but it was such a good spot. I wanted to get it. So I'm backing in, and my headlight kisses the back of that Mercedes in front of me, right? And I was going very slow, so I didn't really damage it, but I touched it. And when I touched it, I realized, okay, I'm not going to make this spot. Little did I know, the woman was sitting in the Mercedes while I touched it. So she gets out of the driver's seat, this old Polish lady. She has a Mercedes fleece hoodie on. Like, this is someone who's obviously very proud of her car. She's driving around her Mercedes. She gets out with a Mercedes hoodie and starts crying, "You hit my car! What do you have?" And she starts freaking out. And I told her, because I had my foot on the brake, I said, listen to me. I apologize. I shouldn't have tried to park here, but there will not be any damage to your car if you just inch forward, because I just tapped it. Now, if I move, I'm going to scrape against it.
Right,
but if she just moves forward, there will not be any damage. So I said, listen, I apologize. Calm down. You hit my car. You owe me $1,000. I said, just take a breath, please. I apologize. If you get in your car and you just drive a few inches forward, I promise you there will not be any damage to the car. I promise you. You hit him. It took me like 5 minutes to calm her down. My foot is on the brake. Like, I can't move my foot because then I will damage the car.
Right, yeah.
And this lady will come for my fucking head if I damage her car. That's how much she loves her car. So finally, she gets in. She inches up. Sure enough, no damage to the car. So she walks back. She sees there's no evidence of no scratch, not a scratch, not anything. And she says, "Give me $200." I said, "Why?" I said, "There's no damage to your car. I'm not giving you the $200." She said, and so then she said, "Well, give me your information." I said, "Fine, take my phone number. If somebody finds a scratch and you think I owe you money, I'll give you some money." I knew that wouldn't happen because there's nothing there. There's nothing to find. I did it to get rid of her. I love how even after I didn't damage it, give me $200. What a nut job.
Yeah. This is why you're better off on the subway.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Well,
Tusker's observation of the subway, it's always interesting when you have somebody from a completely different environment who's never been to New York to just see what they observe. And she noticed how no one makes eye contact and just kind of maintain. She felt half the people had dead faces.
Yeah.
Which, may be true.
That may be true.
Maybe.
That's something an out-of-towner would recognize more than a local.
They would notice that. Notice it. Do I very often on the subway feel like this is a ship of the damned? Sure.
Oh yeah.
Especially if you ride it at like 8:30 in the morning.
Oh yeah.
It definitely has that galley slave feel to it.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. 803 in the YouTube chat. And we got a crowd filing in on Rumble, 620 so far. We should be at full 666 pretty soon. But we are on both platforms today, even though it is Wednesday, and we do have a lot of material to get to. So why don't we get started right now? So Donald Trump was in Las Vegas over the weekend, a scorching hot rally, very, very hot temperatures, and the teleprompter apparently malfunctioned in the middle of his speech, and so he had to go off script. And so he launched into a story about a meeting he had with a South Carolina boat producer, and he was criticizing green boats, hybrid non-fossil fuel using boats, battery powered boats, and he goes into quite the off the cuff rant here. Here's Donald Trump out in the sun in Las Vegas.
So I said, let me ask you a question. And he said, nobody ever asked this question. And it must be because of MIT, my relationship to MIT. Very smart. He goes, I say, what would happen if the boat sank from its weight and you're in the boat and you have this tremendously powerful battery and the battery's now underwater and there's a shark that's approximately 10 yards over there. By the way, a lot of shark attacks lately. Do you notice that? A lot of shark. I watched some guys justifying it today. Well, they weren't really that angry. They bit off the young lady's leg because of the fact that they were not hungry, but they misunderstood who she was. These people are crazy. He said there's no problem with sharks. They just didn't really understand a young woman swimming now. It really got decimated, and other people too. A lot of shark attacks. So I said, so there's a shark 10 yards away from the boat, 10 yards, or here. Do I get electrocuted? If the boat is sinking, water goes over the battery, the boat is sinking. Do I stay on top of the boat and get electrocuted? Or do I jump over by the shark and not get electrocuted? Because I will tell you, he didn't know the answer. He said, nobody's ever asked me that question. I said, I think it's a good question. I think there's a lot of electric current coming through that water. But you know what I'd do if there was a shark or you get electrocuted? I'll take electrocution every single time. I'm not getting near the shark. So we're going to...
Woohoo! You notice under Joe Biden, shark attacks have increased under the failing Democrats, under the failing Democrat policies.
They're coming from the Arctic Circle. Yeah. They're coming from the north. They're coming from the south. We have to have a moratorium on sharks. No, until we find out what the hell is going on.
What the hell is going on? What the hell is going on?
And the battery's now underwater.
Okay,
and
this
there's
part.
A shark that's approximately 10 yards over there. By the way, a lot of shark attacks lately. Do you notice that? A lot of shark. I watched some guys justifying it today. Well, they weren't really that angry. They bit off the young lady's leg because of the fact that they were not hungry, but they misunderstood who she was. These people are crazy.
Okay, they're crazy. Okay, so like minds really do think alike. What made this story stand out to me, aside from his improv skills, right, his skills for keeping the crowd entertained while they figure out how to fix the prompter, it reminded me of a time, I guess I was a teenager, and we were taking this boat off the coast of Florida because my grandparents lived there. It was like a snorkeling trip out in the middle of the ocean where they take you miles out in the ocean. So there's no land, nothing around. We're going to see some reef, coral reef, whatever the fuck it was. And, they give everybody these underwater cameras so you could take pictures, and they put pictures on the boats of what to expect when you get out there. And I see these pictures of, very nice reef with a pretty fish. But then every few pictures, there are these giant 6-foot barracudas that, apparently swim right past you. And so I was thinking this. I didn't want to ask it because I didn't want to sound like a big pussy. But thankfully, one of the other people raised their hand. They asked the tour guide, excuse me, how do we know we're not going to get attacked by a barracuda? Because, those are meat eaters. They'll come at you and they're big. He says, well, a barracuda will only attack you if it thinks you're a fish. That's reassuring. How? How do I know whether or not I look like a fish to a barracuda? How do I know there's not going to be some stupid barracuda swimming by who looks at me and thinks, oh, there's a nice big fat fucking fish? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How do you know?
You're pretty pasty too.
Exactly. I was even pastier back then. And so how do I know whether or not I look like a fish to a barracuda? What the guy's basically telling me is, if you get your arm bitten off by a barracuda, don't take it personally. He didn't mean anything by it.
They
He
can't
thought
really
you were a
take
fish.
your arm off. They're going to take like a chunk of meat out of you, really.
They can do some damage. A barracuda? You don't think a barracuda
Sure.
can take an arm? Don't forget, I was like 16. I was like a grown man. Like, I was like
small.
a skinny kid.
I don't think they could take the arm off. But, they would take a big chunk of meat out of you.
They could take a big chunk of meat out of you. Now you can be bleeding out in the middle of the ocean, which is when the sharks come. Right?
Yeah, well, that's true.
Yeah,
that's
so
true.
fuck that. Fuck that. Yeah. But I like how Trump made that same observation. Yeah, they're trying to justify it by saying, oh, he wasn't really hungry. He didn't know who you were, so he bit your leg off. Who he was talking about, I don't know. Did he have a specific woman in mind who had her leg bitten off by a shark?
Well, this is what they always say, that they won't attack you unless they mistake you for a fish. So when I was in Costa Rica, they say America is the land of the free. But pretty much every place else I've ever been is much freer. And that's partly because they're not as litigious.
Right.
That really puts a damper on things when everyone's afraid of getting sued for $1 million.
Right,
Costa
yes.
Rica, I went to the rodeo in Costa Rica. People keep jumping in with the bull. And at first I thought they were trying to save somebody or help the matador. And then after a while, I realized, no, this is just the local custom. If you feel like jumping in the ring with the bull, you can. So every time the bull comes out, like 20 guys would jump in and taunt the bull. And yeah, a couple of them would get jacked by the bull. They get fucked up by the bull. So, okay, this is a country without lawsuits.
Right.
There's no way you could do this in America. Absolutely no way. But they were running tours. I went out scuba diving and they were like, yeah, the other tour we run is feeding the bull sharks. I said, what? They say, yeah, feeding the bull sharks. I said, aren't they called bull sharks because they attack unpredictably? Oh, they get a bad reputation that way. Listen. This was like within the last year. A woman was just ripped apart in 3 feet of water in Australia by 3 bull sharks. She wasn't doing anything. She's minding her own business. 3 bull sharks just came in and literally tore her apart, killed her on the spot. So yeah, feeding bull sharks. I mean, I guess if they get used to the humans and understand that they're not food, but you never know, man. It's a wild animal.
Yeah, how do you know? There's no way of knowing. And you're on their home turf. Now,
Yeah, exactly. 2 words for you, Siegfried and Roy.
Yeah. And that's why we should all be very skeptical of the Green New Deal.
He said there's no
You don't want
That is
to.
why.
You don't want to
He
be in a
just didn't really
situation where you're having to
understand
choose between
a young
electrocution
woman swimming
and
now
getting
really
mauled
got
by a shark.
decimated, and other people too. A lot of shark attacks. So I said,
And also, you have those
so
land
there's a shark
sharks.
10 yards
That's
away
right.
from the boat.
They'll come right to your
10
door.
yards. Or here. Do I get electrocuted if the boat is sinking? Water goes over the battery. The boat is sinking. Do I stay on top of the boat and get electrocuted? Or do I jump over by the shark and not get electrocuted? Because I will tell you, he didn't know the answer. He said, nobody's ever asked me that question.
I love the blank stare that the audience gives him a lot. Like, yeah, he gets the applause at the end because they know they're supposed to, but he gets a lot of just blank stares. Like, Trump is really the human embodiment of Atlantic City. Like, Atlantic City is always a lot nicer and more fun in your mind than it is when you get there. I was like, oh, this will be fun, the buffets and the slots and the beach. And then you get there like, this is kind of just fucking boring and weird, and I can't wait to go home. That's the way a lot of people feel at the Trump rallies, I feel like. I mean, I don't know. Did you sense that? Did he have them in the palm of his hand, or were they just kind of looking at him, giving him the MAGA cat stare, shall we say? You know how there's the liberal cat stare? There's also the MAGA cat stare. I mean, that's it. Look at those. These people are like, what the fuck is he talking about? This woman's got her head down, to over the left shoulder. Yeah.
Well, his teleprompter didn't break in the Bronx.
Right.
So his speech was more cohesive. You saw my footage. I mean, what you saw was what it was. People were pretty into it. I think having him in the Bronx was a novelty. That was probably part of it.
That's true.
It's very rare if you're MAGA that you get the opportunity to let your freak flag fly like that, in the company of your fellow MAGAs. So they were pretty juiced about it, and he didn't really go on anything that was that aimless. I told you a lot of the speech was about New York. A lot of it was about his career in construction. It was much more New York centric and directed for that particular audience than I would have expected. But yeah, it was typical Trump, just braggadocio. And they couldn't figure out how to make cars go. And then I said, well, how about if you make a wheel? And then cars were able to go. There were no cars until I told them. I said, because they were making them square. They were making square wheel. I said, why don't you make them round? Make them round.
Yeah, exactly.
It was 2 hours of that. Basically, Trump saves the universe. But they were eating it up. They were all about it.
All right, 772 on Rumble, left arm. All right. Thanks, everybody, for being here today. We'll take some super chats to get things going. Maddow's Tears says Patrick Donahue like AOCs for the kids in cages and silence now. Sums up that they are without a doubt sociopaths. Thank you, Patrick Donahue. Appreciate that very much. The Willie Bragg Show. Hey, Willie, thanks for the $20. That's kind of you.
Oh, thank you, Willie.
Thank you, man. I keep on meaning to mention this, but one of the people from the Deep Fat Fried podcast was asked about having Due Dissidents on or vice versa. Personally, I think it would be awesome if both DD and DFF got together. Yeah, have them send us an email, for sure. I tend more on the oven-baked and roasted side of things, but I'm open to Deep Fat Fried.
Look, man, he really cares about Palestinians right up to the line of the baked wings at Pizza Hut. That is where Keaton will not go with his BDS.
I have not eaten Pizza Hut since. I mean, I would have Pizza Hut maybe once or twice a year anyway, but none since October. So I'll have everybody know that. Yes, indeed.
You came around.
Yeah, came around. No Starbucks, nothing. Been very strict about that. Go easy on Ritchie Torres. Imagine if you had to whistle every time you just so you remember which end to. Oh, come on. Come on. In Norm voice, please. No one asked for it, but here is a musical about modern-day Jonah dogmatics by a bard and a guitar. Thank you. No one. Appreciate that. No one asked for it, but here it is.
What are you talking about, Dr. Nick? What is that?
So Indy talked a little shit on the Hardlens today about how you got the worst New York pizza and you embarrassed the city by ordering lousy pizza for the crew because he didn't like the John's pizza.
So this is what I would say. First of all, me and Keaton gamed this out. It was a joint decision. I was going to order Bleecker Street Pizza Nona. We were afraid of something going wrong because it had to be delivered from downtown and there was like
40 blocks away. Yeah.
Yeah. There was like a tight changeover between the shows. Now, John's Pizza downtown is great. It's still, I mean, I've had it within the last couple of years, so they couldn't have drastically changed it in the last couple of years. But I noticed this with Joe's also. Joe's on Bleecker Street. Joe's on Bleecker. Wait till I come to your fucking town, motherfucker. Joe's on Bleecker Street is much better than Joe's in Midtown because they know the tourists are there.
Yeah.
So I order John's. I figure it's going to be like John's on Bleecker Street. It is not. So Indy's not wrong. Like, that was not good pizza to me. It was good to Tusker because she doesn't know any better. I told her, she was asking me about pizza. I was like, listen, man, that lowly slice joint on the corner there is going to be better than any pizza you ever had in Arkansas, but it wouldn't be like good pizza to us. So no, man. But I haven't eaten at John's in Midtown in 10 years. So now they like decided they could make shitty pizza in Midtown because the tourists don't know any better. Like Tusker thought it was good.
Yeah, we wanted to get like an institution pizza. We didn't just want to get it from a random place because we had people there from out of town. So
right, but yeah, I mean, I get it. It might be. Indy was saying it might be post COVID. They fucked everything post. Maybe last time I had John's Pizza in Midtown, it was the same as John's Pizza downtown, but that was 10 years ago.
Long time. Yep. All right. Well, that's just the way it goes.
So that's what I should have stuck with the Nona. That was what I was originally going to do. I should have gone with the Nona. We were just worried if anything goes wrong, there was no time between shows, really, so then nobody would get food.
That's right. Yeah, we had to. We were on a strict time limit for sure. Nice shirt, Russ. Captain P from Coney. Mermaid Parade coming up. Great show on Sunday. Oh, here's the guy who gave you the shirt. Gave us the shirts. Thank you, Derek.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Oh, is that this Sunday? Is that this week?
Oh yeah. Is that coming up?
Maybe
gotta call Norm.
We got to get Norm for as our on the ground correspondent.
Yeah, we can call him. He gave me his number. I don't think he would consider this an abuse of his phone number. Calling him up and asking him to the Mermaid Parade.
But Dr. Nick. All right, so now things have quieted down. I will send your skull.
There. Oh, you still didn't send the skull?
I fucking things have been crazy, man.
All right, but you still got the address, right? I gave you the address.
Yeah. Now we got through the madness this weekend. Was like everything was focused on this.
Yes, that is true. There was a lot of madness this weekend. For sure. Let's go to a Rumble rant here. Let's see. En passant, you know how those parking spots look empty sometimes and there's a small car tucked away? I hit one in Japan. It was a tiny little cop car. FML doubled my JCI for a year. Yeah, no, this wasn't that. This was just, I know what you're saying, but this was just wishful thinking on my part, thinking I could get a good spot in front of the building, even though it was not to be. Make America electrocuted again. Thank you, $1 Million Trooper. Appreciate that. All right, let's move on. Let's go to one of our banner segments of the day, Rachel Maddow, NAOC.
Friend of show, Rachel Maddow. All right, pull up the slideshow for me. Help me out here. We got a lot going on in the back end today.
Oh, okay. Yeah, here we go.
All right, so this CNN article, I pulled out a couple of choice pieces. The thing that everyone's paying attention to is her fear that she's going to be locked up by Trump. But the whole article is incredible in its dishonesty and its derangement and in the kind of just absolute ass kissing that the so-called journalist here, Oliver Darcy, is doing with her. It's just amazing. So I pulled out a couple of choice things aside from her fear that Trump's going to lock her up. This is the quality of journalism you get at CNN. It's somehow, this is Maddow's response to a question. It's somehow comforting and discomforting at the same time to look at previous instances where factually unhinged conspiratorial narratives have taken hold in mainstream politics. Wow. Imagine that. Imagine if unhinged conspiratorial narratives were to take hold in mainstream politics. Rachel would know nothing about that, never having been the font of such things. One of the takeaways from that history is just the confirmation that, yes, we're quite susceptible to that as a country, but also that patient, responsible, consistent debunking And criticism of those lies has an effect on the American people. It takes a long time, and it doesn't reach everyone, but it can influence the median voter in a way that ultimately can be decisive. So in other words, the troglodytes, the poors, the ignorant, the dummies out there, it's hard to reach them. But if you try really hard and you're very consistent, you can bring fire to the savages eventually. And I'm just the person to do it. Now, this one is really funny. Often MSNBC is compared to Fox News. People say they watch Fox for the conservative perspective and MSNBC for the liberal perspective. This is the journalist. It's obviously a flawed argument, given that Rupert Murdoch's channel operates with no regard for basic truth. But you must hear this argument made. How do you respond to it? Maddow responds, I'm hoping our work speaks for itself. So how has her work spoken for itself? Well, even the Washington Post called out Maddow. Rachel Maddow rooted for the Steele dossier to be true. Then it fell apart. But not just liberal rag WAPO. A real journalist, Max Blumenthal, caught up with Rachel Maddow to ask her about that. And he says here, Rachel Maddow doesn't do Q&A from the audience, so I had to find another way to ask her about her relentless promotion of the most discredited hoaxes of Russiagate, from the Steele dossier to Russian bounties. She peered silently at my badge, and security quickly pounced on me. So some of you may have seen this. It's a couple years back, but let's take a look.
On overthrowing the U.S. government. And members of Congress who were sympathetic.
Rachel, this speech is boring and paranoid. Can you explain why you promoted the Steele? Why did you promote the Steele dossier, which has been proven to be a lie? Why did you promote the lie of Russian bounties?
Come on, let's go.
Can you ever be held accountable for the lies you told Americans for years and years and years? You lied to Americans for years.
Let's go.
Silence is violence, Rachel.
You're out. You're out.
Let's go. Here you go. You want my badge? Thank you. Here you go. I'm walking out.
All right. So this was that was a year ago, actually.
Yeah, just over a year ago. He tweeted that out June 2nd of last year.
Yeah. So a lot of you probably remember that. I had a similar experience with trying to get a response from Maddow. Her policy is clearly just to wait for security to handle the troglodytes and take them out. But that is just amazing for Rachel Maddow. And maybe more amazing than Rachel Maddow having no sense of irony about talking about the negative impact of conspiracies and conspiracists on the American polity, than a journalist from another outlet, a theoretically rival outlet, questioning her unskeptically, uncritically, even making sure that he does not in any way offend Rachel by saying, well, of course, that's crazy to compare MSNBC and Fox News, because MSNBC has a love of the facts. Can you pull that up again?
Yeah, just before we do, you would think it'd be in his interest to sort of paint, I mean, by his, I mean CNN's interest, to sort of paint MSNBC and Fox as sort of the mirror image of the other one. Right. I mean, why wouldn't they want to do that? That's how they establish their brand as just, we call balls and strikes here, right? But no, he vouched for her. He definitely vouched for her.
Okay, so this is the one that's really getting all of the focus. Maddow joins what is becoming really a drumbeat among liberal commentators and politicians of fear of being locked up should Trump win. So the question is, Trump and his allies are openly talking about weaponizing the government to seek revenge against critics in media and politics, with some of his extremist allies even talking about jailing their fellow Americans. You're one of his most notable critics on television. Are you worried that you could be a target? And Maddow responds, I'm worried about the country broadly if we put someone in power who is openly avowing that he plans to build camps to hold millions of people and to root out what he's described in subhuman terms as his enemy from within. I would direct you all, by the way, to Matt Orfala's typically masterful video compilation of Maddow, amongst others, describing Republicans and conservatives as rats. To continue, again, history is helpful here. He's not joking when he says this stuff, and we've seen what happens when people take power proclaiming that kind of agenda. I think there's a little bit of head in the sand complacency that Trump only intends to go after individual people he has already singled out. Do you really think he plans to stop at well-known liberals? It also seems pretty clear that some people in politics might think they'll be on the safe side, that they might even benefit from it if they side with Trump. Ask Mike Pence about how that works out in the end. When Trump invokes the Insurrection Act to deploy the U.S. military against civilians on his first day in office, do you think he then rescinds the order on day 2? For that matter, what convinces you that these massive camps he's planning are only for migrants? So yes, I'm worried about me, but only as much as I'm worried about all of us. Well, that's reassuring. Rachel's not just worried about herself. She's worried about all the shitlib aunts and uncles that make Thanksgiving such a joy for all the rest of us.
Yes. I'm worried about the people who buy my books as well, not just me.
Not just those who get paid millions of dollars to spew bullshit, but those who consume our bullshit.
Right.
Are part of my concern. But she's not the only one spreading this paranoid fantasy, which I must say, for most Americans, and this is how out of touch and elite class they are, they don't understand that all of this is threatening people with a good time.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
For most people, when Rachel Maddow says Trump might lock her up, that is a campaign advertisement.
Right.
For Trump. If people thought he would really do that, his polls would jump 5 points. But not to be outdone, here's Nicole Wallace also claiming that she's in danger from a Trump presidency.
I've seen that toast a bunch of times, but it landed very differently this year. Because depending on what happens in November, 7 months from right now, this time next year, I might not be sitting here. There might not be a White House Correspondents' Dinner or a free press. While our democracy wouldn't exactly fall apart immediately without it, the real threat looms larger. A candidate with outward disdain, not just for a free press, but for all of our freedoms and for the rule of law itself.
So that was right after the White House Correspondents' Dinner, which she sounds like she's still drunk from the White House Correspondents' Dinner. She's like slurring her words. Sounds like she had a great time at what, in her mind, could be the last one. I guess she wanted to go out in style.
How out of touch do you have to be to talk about, although for the audience that would actually watch Nicole Wallace, not as part of their submission at Guantanamo to the guards, but by voluntarily watch this for pleasure, what she's saying makes total sense. But that's why they're losing once again to Eric Cartman, because these people are so fucking loathsome. They're the only people on earth who could make Donald Trump look like a good option. She's talking about these elite institutions that people absolutely fucking despise going away as a reason not to vote for Donald Trump. And again, this plays completely differently to the vast majority of Americans. Everything she's describing, Nicole Wallace no longer being on the air, the White House Correspondents' Dinner not happening anymore. How many people in the country would you say that to would say, oh, that would be terrible?
Right. Right. No, of course. Well, this just goes back to the FDR for freedom speech. You know, if you don't make democracy work for people, they are not going to give a shit about its fate. You know, the way fascism is ushered in is not because people one day consciously decide they want to be ruled over by fascists. It's because democracy doesn't pay off anymore. So if they don't feel that this quote unquote, democratic system of ours has their best interest at heart, then why should they have its best interest at heart? What's in it for them? Nothing. So it's not that, look, most people don't even know who she is. Most people probably don't even know when the White House Correspondents' Dinner takes place, if they know what it is at all. Most people don't care about maintaining the system because most people don't feel like the system has done anything for them. It's not that there's this rebellion at the gates and that everybody's going to overthrow the government. It's that you have people motivated on both sides. There are those really angry people on the right. There were some angry people on the left, but the DNC team seemed to tame them, right? And then you have this large swath of people who are mostly apathetic, who are mostly checked out, who mostly feel no investment in the outcome either way, because they have not been given a reason to. That's the real threat to these people. It's actually not the angry mob. It's the huge swath of people who stopped giving a shit because their precious democracy hasn't compelled them to give a shit because it has sold them out to money.
Well, and also she's representing a media that everyone except Democrats recognizes is corrupt and untrustworthy. And saying and representing it as this cornerstone of democracy, and that just doesn't make sense to anyone because they can see that it is not. You say to a real Democrat, well, Joe Biden and his family are fucking criminals. It's obvious. They will lose their minds because they sit there with their brains stewing in this propaganda all day, telling you that anyone who thinks that is basically a Nazi. When it's quite clear, if you attached the same fact pattern to the Trump family that attaches to the Biden family, they would see very quickly the criminality. It's not like you have to go on some Indiana Jones quest through the jungles into a cave with a bag of sand to find the truth about the Biden family. It's pretty out in the open what they're doing. So to go out there and say, well, we have to defend a free press, or that someone like Nicole Wallace is a defender of the free press and the rule of law. Hey, you all want to trot around Stormy Daniels as some kind of hero. Most people see that as a political prosecution. So you've completely lost that argument as well. But it's not something that they would ever acknowledge.
All right, here we go.
All right, so now AOC. AOC did a podcast with Kara Swisher, in which she too has this. I'm starting to think this is a liberal kink. Oh, please, Mr. Trump, don't lock me up and make me eat the bad food.
Role playing. Yeah.
This is another one. AOC worried that she's going to be put in jail.
What happens to you if Donald Trump wins? What do you do? What's your first move?
I mean, it sounds nuts, but like, I wouldn't be surprised if this guy threw me in jail.
Really?
He's out of his mind.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he did his whole first campaign around lock her up. Like, this is his motto.
Oh, he didn't say that, He said he didn't say it. Teasing.
Yeah, right?
See that, yeah.
Oh, yeah, he didn't say that. Did he do it? Did he end up doing it? Because that's the more important thing, right? He didn't actually do it, did he?
Well, not only that, Joe Biden, for decades, has been claiming to have been a civil rights activist that he never was. He has been forced to come out and admit that he was not telling the truth about it. And he's still doing it. He did it again a couple of months ago, claimed to have been present at a civil rights action that he was not present at. So is he out of his mind? Because this is before he literally started to be out of his mind. This is before dementia. He lied about trying to meet Nelson Mandela. Is that not out of his mind? You got to be pretty crazy when you're a public figure. You know there's cameras around wherever you go, right? He was a senator at the time that he's describing. How do you think you could get away with telling people that? How is that better than Donald Trump, who, when I saw his rally, when the woman passed out, says, yeah, some people were waiting out there for 2 days. It's pretty terrible. He's a reflexive liar. So is Joe Biden. So is Joe Biden, and I would say about very often about more weighty matters.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I take him at his word. I take him at his word. I take him at his word when he says that he's going to round up people. I take him at his word when he threatens journalists. I take him at his word. I feel like what we saw in his first presidency was an amuse-bouche to what his intentions are. He has learned from his mistakes of appointing professionals, and he will not make that mistake next time.
Well, one thing he might do differently this time is actually try and prosecute Democrats because, I don't know, they did it to him. You know what I mean? Like, he might just go back and do it. Like, he might go for it. Now, AOC is still pretty young. I don't know if she's done anything yet. I don't know if he could. I don't know if he can nail her on something. Nancy Pelosi probably could. Most of these senior Democrats, he probably could. She's probably safe for the time being.
Well, and they're constantly contradicting themselves because on the one hand, when Trump was president, they were constantly claiming that the justice system was under his control. And he gets prosecuted, and they claim that it's a conspiracy theory, Trump claiming that the president can control the justice system that way. It's a different branch of government. There's not that kind of control. And now Trump is going to be president again. Now they're swinging back to Trump is going to have this direct control over the justice system. Which is it? It's kids in cages or migrant detention centers, right? It depends on who the president is.
Yeah, no, as the calendar draws near to November, you're going to start seeing a lot more of this. I mean, it's literally all they have to run on. And it doesn't seem to be working so far, but you never know. People, especially progressives, tend to be susceptible to that. I mean, right now there's this big abandon Biden movement.
Are they this time, though? Are they?
Well, this is the question. Like, I don't think the Arab and Muslim voters are. I think they have too personal a connection to what's going on and what Biden is responsible for to actually chicken out at the last minute. Some of these, campus types, some of them are going to hold the line. Some of them won't. It's a matter of, who sticks it out and who doesn't. That's going to be extremely critical in places like Michigan, in places like Wisconsin, where you have a giant college town like Madison, where the Democrats count on for so many of their votes, how many of them stay home. That's a question, but the play that you're going to see coming down the home stretch is exactly what we just saw, coming from media talking heads and coming from the AOCs out there.
Sure. And how effective is that going to be? Because, again, the idea of a bunch of despised, wealthy journalists and politicians saying you can't vote for Trump because Trump is going to put us in prison. Right. I don't think that's the winning pitch they seem to think it is.
I don't think so either. I don't either. Amadeus, thanks for the $2. She had a shark named Vagina. That's right. Billy Denk, thanks for the $10. Did Trump say that Quince should finish the job? Yeah, that would have been a good line too. Let's see here. Bull sharks are the most aggressive species of sharks. They have the highest amount of testosterone. Not a joke. They're also one of the few species that can survive in both fresh and salt water. Well, that's interesting.
See? And there are people out there fucking around with these sharks.
That's right.
You got city hands, Mr. Hooper. Been counting money all your life.
Trump's lies are larger and more full of shit than Eli Lake's toilet seat. Thank you, Kenvin G. That's a nice image. Let's see. Vote Kucinich and Vega. I wonder how Kucinich's poll numbers are. I wonder about that. I haven't checked in on that in a while. Appreciate you guys. Keep it up, says Salamander Fry. Thank you very much.
Kucinich lost my vote when he said he's not going to lock up Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah, he laughed
at
him.
There's what I'm saying. Locking up Democrats is a good campaign platform, even for a Democrat.
Yeah, Russell has to stick that out. Although, obviously, I mean, yeah, Kucinich, lifelong Democrat, he's running as an independent this time.
He is, yes.
But yeah, but that's why I'm curious to see what his poll numbers are, because he's running third party, but he is a very well-known name, obviously. All right, we're going to do one light one here before we get into our heavier stuff for the day. Jerry Seinfeld's been in the news quite a bit lately about a lot of different things, but he made a lot of news talking about how extreme left PC culture has destroyed comedy, and he got a little bit of pushback from his former co-star here. Julia Louis-Dreyfus says criticism like Jerry Seinfeld's of political correctness is a red flag. Julia Louis-Dreyfus countered former co-star Jerry Seinfeld's comments, blaming political correctness for killing comedy, saying that having an antenna about sensitivities is a good thing and that such PC bashing is a, quote, red flag. Seinfeld made headlines for his April interview with The New Yorker, in which he said funny stuff on TV, such as the golden era sitcoms Cheers and The Mary Tyler Moore Show, doesn't exist anymore. This is the result of the extreme left and PC crap and people worrying so much about offending other people, he said. Louis-Dreyfus, who played Elaine Bennis on Seinfeld, challenged that take in an interview the New York Times published on Saturday. When I hear people starting to complain about political correctness, and I understand why people might push back on it, but to me that's a red flag because it sometimes means something else, she said. I believe being aware of certain sensitivities is not a bad thing. I don't know how else to say it. She said that looking back on comedy and drama from 30 years ago through today's lens, you might find bits and pieces that don't age well. I think to have an antenna about sensitivities is not a bad thing. It doesn't mean that all comedy goes out the window as a result, she said. In a follow-up conversation 11 days after her original interview, she returned to the topic of political correctness. My feeling about all of it is that political correctness, insofar as it equates to tolerance, is obviously fantastic. And of course, I reserve the right to boo anyone who says anything that offends me while also respecting their right to free speech, right? She said. She added that, in her opinion, a bigger problem and threat to art is the consolidation of money and power. That's interesting. All this siloing of studios and outlets and streamers and distributors, I don't think it's good for the creative voice. So that's what I want to say in terms of the threat to art, she said. All right, so that's an interesting comment. Yeah, it is an interesting comment. Now, on the one hand, I would say that the consolidation of money and power makes it such that these different studios and streaming platforms become so integrated with all of this money that they can push a certain social agenda that they want, irrespective of whether it makes for good art. And among certain circles, there is this very PC ethos that they try and push, which is why when Jerry Seinfeld says, well, you don't see things like Cheers and the Mary Tyler Moore Show anymore, that's true. You probably couldn't even do a lot of the Seinfeld stuff on Channel 4 now that you could back then. Where he's, of course, wrong is that you can circumvent that space. Jerry Seinfeld, these guys, these are dinosaurs. These are people for whom TV comedy means Channel 4. We proved this last weekend. That's why I wanted to do this. We proved last weekend you can fill a theater, tell whatever fucking jokes you want. We told a lot of jokes that we can't even put up on the YouTube channel, and everybody had a great time. No one came for us. No one tried to cancel us. You can work around it because there's a huge space out there right now. That's why it's so off-putting to hear these people like Jerry Seinfeld and Bill Maher bitch that the audiences aren't laughing anymore. That's because you're stuck in an old medium catering to an old audience who is so used to conforming to the taste du jour of who? Consolidated money and power that are behind Amazon Studios, right? And all of these different studios now that have a monopoly on an old distribution model. So yeah, two things can be true. Yes, mainstream television has gotten more PC. Not that I don't even know how that affects Jerry Seinfeld. He makes jokes about Pop-Tarts. Like, what envelope is he even trying to push that he can't push? Right. I don't even understand that. But most importantly, don't fucking complain. You're rich. You make a hell of a lot of money telling jokes. Go out and find an audience. Audiences are out there everywhere. Jimmy Dore did a great stand-up set at the Jose Vega fundraiser. Pretty raunchy stuff at that fundraiser. Did anybody come for him? No. People out there don't care. You get the sense that people are uptight and easily offended because that's the audience on cable TV, but that's a very small audience nowadays. So don't fucking complain. Just go do your shit. We did it. Jimmy did it this weekend. We all had a great time.
All right. So my take on this is nuanced. I appreciate what she said overall. And I think she's right overall. As you point out, there is this kind of ESG push on a social agenda that's deeply unpopular. And where people get upset about it is particularly Disney, but they're not the only ones. Disney gets all of the heat because they bought up so many of the beloved cultural myths. They have Star Wars. They have Doctor Who. They have the Marvel characters. And they've really been working overtime, most recently with The Acolyte, with everything right down to lesbian witches immaculately conceiving children through the Force, to push this very, very outside the mainstream agenda within these formerly popular IPs that are very beloved cultural myths and very cherished. So I think you have two things going on. Yeah, we were able to do that, but where did we do it? We didn't do it at the Paramount, right? I mean, we didn't do it in a 5,000 seat house. The big money is around the ESG political correctness forced agenda. And that's why you have these big properties being infected and infiltrated by this kind of activism. But on the other hand, going to what you're saying, look at Ryan Long, man. That guy has a great fucking career making jokes, and he was doing it at the height of cancel culture. He was doing sketches about woke racism and all of this stuff and morbidly obese models and taking shots at Lizzo at the height of cancel culture. He didn't even get taken off YouTube.
Well, no, a lot of comics now do stuff on YouTube. I mean, people put entire specials up on YouTube now, and you're right. You're not going to get filthy rich doing it, but you can have a pretty damn good career and live fairly comfortably as a working artist without going into these channels and these forums that are dominated by a certain narrow sort of cultural worldview. Kurt Metzger put out his last comedy special on YouTube. Nick Mullen put out a great comedy special, really fucking edgy, dark stuff, but really funny. I'm a fan of his. Year of the Dragon, it's called. That's on YouTube. A lot of stand-ups now are putting specials out directly on YouTube and doing pretty well at it. Like I said, like if you want Seinfeld money, yeah, that door might be closed to you. But fuck you for wanting Seinfeld money, man. If you can make a few $100 grand a year as a comedian, as an artist, as a podcaster, you got nothing to fucking bitch about. Exactly.
Well, and this is another point I think a lot of people miss. Things in a lot of ways for an artist and a creative who wants to go their own way have never been better. Never been better. You've never been able to go around the gatekeepers the way that you can now. Exactly. Even the way that we on YouTube, of course, complain about censorship, but ultimately we are much more free than people doing what we do who at one time had one means of distribution, network TV. How is that? You think YouTube is censorious? What if you had a gig at a network doing journalism? You think you could talk about the things we talk about or say the things that we say? So we're complaining rightly about censorship. I'm against any form of censorship. But there's a tendency to frame that somehow as we have it worse. And that's crazy. That's crazy. Back in the day, if we got anywhere near a network newsroom, it would have been in the mailroom. There is no fucking way they would have given a couple of people saying things like this a show. Never. Yeah, no. And with our even as different as the ethos was regarding journalists being more working class back then, they still wouldn't have put you on TV. You might a couple of guys like us could have gotten a job at a newspaper, sure, and even then you would have had an editor. Right, said, you can't say this about Ritchie Torres.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
So that's not new. And I also feel even when you're talking about this consolidation of money, I thought that was an interesting point that she made. It's two-tiered. It goes back to the same thing. Yeah, there's this consolidation of money around big properties, big films, big projects. those things are less and less relevant, even in the culture. Look at all the bombs this summer. Nobody's even going to these fucking movies. And ultimately, as I keep saying, AI is the end of Hollywood, not in the way they're talking about. They're talking about how AI can replace the actors or replace the writers. No. It's going to replace Hollywood because it's going to put the power to make a Hollywood quality movie in the hands of anyone with a PC. And once that happens, the barrier to entry is gone. Hollywood is gone. Now it all becomes what it's been naturally moving towards anyway. Content creation. A world full of content creators, most of whom are going to suck and never have an audience, just like show business has always been. And a small minority, the cream, will rise to the top in the most democratic way possible, right? Who wants to watch it? The only problem is, companies like Google fucking with the algorithm to boost this and suppress that, but it's always something. But in the end, the kind of centralization that Hollywood has enjoyed, that the media has enjoyed, that is coming to an end. That is what we're witnessing. So what Jerry Seinfeld and Bill Maher are talking about, yes, they're dinosaurs. They don't get what's coming. And they don't get how, if you're not thinking the way they're thinking, there's much more freedom now than there has ever been for creators.
Exactly. Because, from their point of view, right. From their point of view, it's harder than ever to become Jerry Seinfeld or Chris Rock or Dave Chappelle. But it's probably easier than ever to become a fairly successful working comic.
Well, look at Ricky Gervais.
Yeah.
Ricky Gervais is doing just fine sticking his thumb in the eye of these fucking people.
Of course.
He just dropped a video. Maybe we'll do it tomorrow because Thursday's the light show. He just dropped a video where he's laying in a bathtub. Did you see that?
No.
Hi, I'm a celebrity, which means I know about science and politics, and I'm going to tell you how to vote. Right. He went on the Golden Globe stage and pissed on these fucking people.
Yeah.
And what do you think? He's scrounging for change under the couch cushion? That guy?
No, he's doing great.
Right. So shut up, Jerry.
Yeah. Roger Meadows, NW is right. Who's NW? What was that? Were we talking about something? What were we talking about? NW is right. She might not be there, but because
Nicole Wallace.
Oh, Nicole Wallace. There you go. I was like, who did we mention earlier? Good one. Nicole Wallace is right. She might not be there, but not because of Trump, but because of what Kit covered this morning of Case QB segment of MSNBC showing them losing to YouTube. Oh, that's interesting. It's an interesting story. Maybe we'll look that up.
Interesting.
For tomorrow. Let's see here. Nona becomes a soggy mess in the box. Joe's doesn't deliver from the Carmine Street location, so fuck that. Keste is my go-to for delivery. I'm Italian, and I'm playing my identity politics on this one. Thank you.
I mean, you sound like you know your shit because you're
like
dropping all the right references.
That's right. That's right. And I've never had Nona delivered. I've always just eaten it right there.
It's true.
Never know.
It still would have been better than that Joe shit. I mean, that was shitty pizza, man.
I enjoyed it just fine.
I mean, it was all right. It wasn't like, Pizza Hut, but it was, like they did something weird. They like salted. It seemed like they put salt on the outside of the crust or something.
Well, the two pies you brought back were a little undercooked because we were in a hurry to get them. Because what happened was Russell ordered 3 pies thinking they were large pies, but because they had the menu all fucked up and laid out on their app or whatever it was, he ended up ordering 3 personal pies by accident. And so we had to get 2 big pies made quick. And yeah, that was a bit on the undercooked side. Wasn't that crispy. Probably because you were standing there making him nervous. Like, we got to get this guy his shit to get him out of here.
Yes.
Yeah. John Freeze, I think a lot of what's going on with liberal feminists is collective trauma. There's widespread violence against women, but that gets escalated over and over-projected like Maddow's view of Putin. I think she's just cashing a check. She's giving the audience what they want. That's what I think. I don't think it has anything to do with her. I don't even think she really believes most of it. I honestly don't.
Roger Ailes was a mentor to Maddow. That's all you need to know.
Yeah. The most Machiavellian figure in probably the history of cable news, I would say.
Yeah.
Almost everything the Dems warned Trump would do, they have done. Now they are warning about camps. There's a pattern. Tough guy from Messy Chimpanzee isn't kidding anymore. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. Let's see here. We will move on to segment number 4. All right, this is a big one. We're going to talk about the EU elections this week. That's a big story.
Okay. Where is the article? Can you throw that up?
I'll throw it up. Yep.
All right. So here is Frau Brucha, Ursula von der Leyen, the head of the EU. Now, this is a couple of months ago, warning people about the dangers of populists taking over the EU.
Putin's friends are trying to rewrite our history and hijack our future. They are spreading hate from behind their keyboards. And let there be no doubt what's at stake in these elections. Our peaceful and united Europe is being challenged like never before by populists, by nationalists, by demagogues, whether it's the far right or it's the far left.
All right, so she was not happy this week. Europe's night of election drama capped by Macron bombshell. France's president Emmanuel Macron has called a bombshell snap parliamentary election after being defeated by the far right in the European elections, in a night of drama that overall saw the center right tighten their grip on the EU Parliament. Mr. Macron made the announcement after losing to his rivals Marine Le Pen and Jordan Bardella and their National Rally Party. France's result was one of the big gains that Europe's far-right parties had expected, and confirmation came with all the exit polls giving National Rally more than 30% of the vote, double that of Mr. Macron's centrist Renaissance Party. Now, I'm just going to say this once. These papers define these ideological lanes the way that they want to. I don't think there's anything really centrist about a deeply unpopular agenda that people hate so much that they would vote for Marine Le Pen in twice the numbers they're voting for you. But all right, they're going to call that centrism. So let's see what we're calling the French HRC moment.
This is the Javits Center.
Prévu à l'article 12 de notre loi, j'ai décidé de vous redonner le choix de notre parlementaire. Je dissous donc l'Assemblée.
Sacre bleu! they were very surprised about this. I don't know. After I'm not saying I'm a fan of Marine Le Pen, but those of us who lived through 2016, you just can't help but kind of enjoy neoliberals freaking out, no matter.
Well, what were they announcing there? It was a foreign language.
They were announcing the election results.
Oh, I thought it was like a mandatory shaved armpit law, mandatory deodorant law. That
would never pass.
Yeah,
Even the
that
neo-libs would not. Even the WEF would not go so far.
Yeah.
They would never try to impose that on the French people. But beyond France, it's going to be funny when our numbers come out next month and we have like a 50% drop off of French audience. But beyond France, the broader story of Europe's 4-day vote marathon really belonged to the parties of the center right. They strengthened their majority in the European Parliament with victories in Germany, Greece, Poland, and Spain, and significant advances in Hungary against long-dominant Prime Minister Viktor Orban. Quote, "The center is holding, but it is also true that the extremes on the left and on the right have gained support," said Ursula von der Leyen, the center-right head of the European Commission, now on course for a second term. Ms. von der Leyen said her center-right group was an anchor of stability, but such a result required great responsibility for the parties in the center. You know, it would help you to sell that if you were not so much a femme fatale from a James Bond movie.
Right, yeah.
You know, that's the one he screws in Monaco, tries to shoot him in the next scene. The far right did not
She looks like the one who would try to knife you during the act. like Basic Instinct.
Yeah, exactly.
Reaches
Yeah,
for
she
the ice
has
pick.
it under the pillow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Hello, Mr. Bond.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy our evening of pleasure? Now it is time to die.
Yeah, exactly.
The far right did not enjoy as great a surge across Europe as many had predicted. In the Netherlands, anti-Islam populist Geert Wilders' Freedom Party came second, and in Belgium, the separatist Vlaams Belang lost out to the nationalist New Flemish Alliance. All right, so
Vlaams Belang, he should just move here and get into hip hop. You could have a great rap career as Vlaams Belang. You should quit politics. You could sell a lot of records just with that name alone.
So you have a lot of people on the right really celebrating this result, and something they particularly enjoyed was seeing the Prime Minister weep. Great news from EU Parliament elections keep coming nonstop. Hamas supporting Prime Minister of Belgium, Alexander De Croo, announced his resignation. May Europe get rid of all its jihadist supporters soon. So, they say there's no crying in baseball, but apparently there is crying in Belgian politics. I'm just going to say, man up. Never let them see you cry. Europeans in 27 countries voted in these elections to elect the next EU Parliament, with the majority of voting happening on Sunday. The European Parliament is the direct link between Europeans and the EU's institutions. There had been talk before the vote that Ms. von der Leyen's dominant European People's Party might consider talking to the two right-wing groups that house the far right. But she made clear the EPP's only allies would be the Socialists and Democrats and the liberal Renew group that includes Mr. Macron's party. While the center-right has a commanding 184 seats in the 720-seat European Parliament, the S&D has not lost grounds, and the centrists are still third despite a big drop in seats. Now I just want to point out, Ms. von der Leyen, her party is considered center-right in Europe, which really reinforces what we're always saying. In Europe, the Democrats would be a center-right party because she sounds like a Democrat. And when given the option of working with the right, she would rather work with the socialists and the Democrats. And that's center-right in Europe.
Right.
So this is, I don't know how well we're going to be able to really see this. So these are the results. Let me see if I blow it up a little bit. Okay, so the socialists and the Democrats, as I say, didn't really lose any seats. They had 140. They're down to 139. The Greens got killed. And this is something you also saw in Ireland, which we'll get into. I think the farmer rebellion and people's feelings about energy prices, maybe partly driven by the Nord Stream, which very mysteriously got put out of commission, might be part of it. Renew Europe also lost a lot of seats, from 102 to 80. The European People's Party gained some seats, 184 versus 177. Conservatives and Reformists picked up 5 seats. And then the others stayed pretty much the same, although independents lost 5 seats. So you could see, like, really the gains, as they point out, are mostly concentrated in the center right. Germany's opposition conservatives were always going to come out on top, and they scored an impressive 30% of the vote. But for Chancellor Olaf Scholz's SPD party, This was the worst ever result in a European election, coming third behind the far-right Alternative for Germany. The victorious, that doesn't sound ominous at all. The victorious head of the conservative CDU, Friedrich Merz, said it was a disaster for the three-party ruling coalition, and he called for a change of tack. Quote, they're damaging our country with the kind of politics they do. The AfD has endured a slew of scandals involving espionage, foreign interference, and allegations of Nazi sympathies, and yet its support still held up. Quote, after all the prophecies of doom, after the barrage of the last few weeks, we are the second strongest force, and I'm telling you the only way is up, said co-leader Alice Weidel. We have some footage of Alice Weidel. Let's see who this rising star in German politics is.
Oops, sorry. I thought you needed me to cue that.
Need to be closed. The borders need to be closed. Illegal migrants need to be rejected without any exceptions. Anyone who stays here without authorization must be deported. Criminals, terrorists, and social fraudsters who have been fraudulently naturalized must surrender their German passport. Dear friends, this and only this is the sole thing that we comprehend and interpret as remigration, without any other variations or interpretations.
All right. Well, they are playing the classics there.
I gotta say, on the plus side, she does look just like George Washington. You know?
She kind of does.
She looks just like him. I haven't seen that hair in a while. That's like founding father's hair.
That was the after party.
There you go. Alexander Hamilton. She looks like a founding father with that hair.
She kind of does.
Yeah.
She leading Germany to a new future.
Yes, very statesmanlike.
Yep. Meanwhile, a new anti-migrant far left party, BSW, led by charismatic left-wing firebrand Sarah Wagenknecht, also performed well, rounding off a good night for radical parties. In Spain, the center-right opposition Popular Party defeated Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez's socialists, but not by the big margin that PP leader Alberto Núñez Feijóo had been hoping for. Meanwhile, in Italy, Giorgia Meloni's dominance of her country's politics continued. Her far-right Brothers of Italy polled 29% of the vote, defeating the center-left Democratic Party of Eli Schlein by almost 5 points. And in Austria, the far-right Freedom Party, FPO, was on course for a narrow but unprecedented victory in the European vote. Although there are only a handful of left-of-center governments in office in the EU, there were victories for the Green Labour Alliance in the Netherlands, the Socialist Opposition in Portugal, and there was a surprise victory in Denmark for the opposition Green Left Party, which finished ahead of the ruling Social Democrats of Mette Frederiksen. And now this is interesting. In Slovakia, the ruling Smer party of Robert Fico had been expecting to win after the prime minister survived an assassination attempt. Smer has campaigned against the EU's policy of sending arms to Ukraine and its Green Deal plans to tackle climate change. But it lost to the liberal opposition Progressive Slovakia Party, whose chairman, Michal Semeka, said voters had sent Mr. Fico's government a clear message that it could not do whatever it wanted. Now, that's it, right? All right, well, let's take this off for a minute. If there's one running theme that I'm seeing, it's a lot of rejection of green policies. It seems like Greens got beat up all across the continent, and it seemed like a lot of politicians who were strongly associated with that were given a trouncing. From what I understand, in Europe, energy prices are through the roof now. In some places, it is partly because of the Nord Stream pipeline. But hey, Jimmy covers this all the time. We covered it when we were working over there more. I mean, you have the farmers doing manure protests and blocking highways, and this neoliberal agenda is just deeply unpopular. Now, I'm going to get into this a little bit also with the Clare Daly thing. We haven't covered this a lot. We did a long time ago. There has been an enormous backlash against immigration brewing in Europe for a very long time. And the left has had no response to it other than the usual. Bigots, racists. That's not an answer. That's not an answer. Now, we, people who have a more serious analysis, will usually say, well, these people would not be immigrating if the West would stop bombing and destabilizing their countries. And that is absolutely true. This is not to blame people who are trying to get themselves out of war zones for trying to get their families to safety. But you cannot expect people to have overwhelming numbers of people from a different culture with different customs to come into the midst of their community, in some cases displacing members of the community, and not get a backlash. Now, you want to say that is a foul dimension of human nature. Okay. I mean, that and a nickel will get you on the subway. Okay. It doesn't matter whether you think that's right or wrong. That's true in any part of the world. If 100,000 Americans show up in Shanghai, the Chinese are not going to be very happy about it. It's just human nature to want your environment to stay the same, to want your culture to remain the same. And just screaming bigot at people, you know what that results in? This. I warned about this a long time ago. We did a segment about this. I said eventually people like Le Pen are going to start to win in Europe because the left has not formulated a response to this discontent.
Well, it mentioned about halfway through that slideshow, pardon me, that Sarah Wagenknecht, who we covered a while back, did very well.
Right.
And she is, because they combined a certain left economics with a more hardline immigration stance. She's also the one who talked quite famously at the time about cultural conservatism as opposed to social conservatism. You know, promote the family while not imposing certain values on people with force. That whole thing. That to me, if you're just talking numbers, if you're analyzing a result like this after the fact, it's not surprising to me that she did well. She's also was a strong voice against the Ukraine war, which, as I understand, differs from a lot of the Green Party positions over there. The Green over there doesn't mean what it means over here. From what I understand, they're more pro-Ukraine war over there on the Green Party line than we are over here. But I think, obviously, I think what you're saying seems to check out in terms of the whole environmental agenda costing votes this time. And also, we see it here, too. Immigration is front and center in a way that we have never seen before. Ever. You've never seen immigration consistently rank first or second here in the U.S. going into a campaign season. And, like I said, far from an expert on the different races that were run over there, it seems like that's becoming more front and center now than ever before in Europe as well. And so those seem to be the main takeaways. And those main takeaways are not, as we're going to see in the next sort of segment here, they're not necessarily what we would want them to be. And this is why I always caution people, do not assume that because what we talk about and what we care about, don't think that because we care about that is a top concern for most people. As I mentioned earlier in the show, there's this huge swath of just disaffected, apathetic, marginally interested people. And the trends that move them are the trends that win races. Immigration, energy, inflation. These are major trends that move major swaths of marginally invested people. That's where elections are mostly won and lost. Now, these issues that we talk a ton about, Gaza, These are niche issues. Unfortunately, I wish to God that were not the case. And they can swing elections. When you talk about localized effects, we're talking about Michigan, we're talking about Dearborn, you're talking about, I see a super chat here. I'll put this up on the screen now, even though it's part of the segment because it's relevant. You reference the Muslim vote a lot. It's only 2 or 3% of Michigan, 1% of the U.S. Does it have any effect on our elections? Yes, if it's close enough in a key state like Michigan. Right. So it's not like it's not that those issues don't matter at all. They can swing a very close race. But if you're looking at major trends where we're analyzing multiple races at once across an entire continent, those big things, energy, inflation, immigration, those are the big things that move large swaths of people. And I think explains this more than anything else.
It's as in America, so it is in Europe. This is a complete failure of neoliberalism. Neoliberalism is and always has been a kind of neo-aristocratic viewpoint where the commoners are supposed to defer to their betters, whose supposed expertise in economics and science is supposed to be the final word on how society is to be arranged. And when the people speak out against the agenda, they're branded as right-wingers, as being ignorant, as being not properly educated. That is what neoliberalism is. And this is the peasants rising up. They're not going to take it because increasingly that disconnect between the public interest and the aristocratic idea of how people should live are just too far apart. This is where, Constantine Cuntrag there did make a good point when he was at the Oxford Union, and he said, you're going to have to invent your way out of climate change because you're never convincing people who are dependent upon these technologies to feed their families that their families have to starve because of climate change. You're just never going to get people to agree to that. And anywhere where you have democracy, they're going to vote against it as soon as it starts to impact them negatively.
Indeed. All right, so we got a B part of this. Do you want to set this up?
Yes. So this shocked a lot of us, I think, here, because we all had the impression the Irish are based, and who's more based than Clare Daly? But she lost, and she lost pretty badly. Controversial Dublin MEP candidate Clare Daly loses seat despite celebrity backing. Her endorsements included Annie Lennox, Susan Sarandon, and other prominent figures. The left-wing candidate was eliminated on Tuesday after falling behind rivals in the Dublin constituency on the 17th count. During her stint at the European Parliament, Daly denounced Western militarism and was accused of giving succor to Vladimir Putin and other dictators, which she denied. She gained a big following on social media platforms and often appeared on state-leaning media in China and Russia. As Daly left the Count Centre in South Dublin, she rebuffed an RTE reporter who asked for an interview. Quote, "You had no interest in talking to me for 5 years, so I've no interest in talking to you." Based.
Yeah.
The Green politician Kieran Cuff, who helped clinch controversial new legislation on buildings' energy efficiency across the bloc, also lost his seat, eliminated in the following round in a knife-edge count. Voters bolstered Ireland's centrist government, chastened Sinn Féin, and elected a handful of far-right candidates in local elections that coincided with the European elections. The ruling coalition appeared poised to also do well in the European election, with counting expected to continue at least until Wednesday. So they should finish up today. This is Clare Daly's statement on X. "I'd like to thank everyone who voted for me and all of the people I've had the privilege of working with over my time as an MEP in Ireland, across Europe, and beyond. I have been honored to have been able to use this platform as a powerful voice for peace, anti-militarism, and neutrality. This result is not a rejection of those ideas. It is a testament to the success and reach of the work we've done that the establishment came out in such force to harm my chances of re-election. Electoral politics is always only a platform to organize from. That organization is going on in communities, workplaces, and universities all over Europe. We continue the fight. That's a very interesting point that she's making, and it's kind of something that we've been saying. That, sure, electoral politics can be part of the mix, but it's not the point. It's only useful insofar as it's part of a broader movement. And it's not surprising to me that she would think that way. Anything, Keaton?
No, I mean, what I was going to say is part of why electoral politics cannot be the end all be all is because of what we're about to show you here. Because this kind of process can pigeonhole you into taking certain positions for political expediency, meaning electoral expediency, that you might not want to take, that just conforms to a certain trend, a certain macro trend that we mentioned a lot in the last segment, and we'll get a little more into now.
Now, Clare Daly, because I knew I was doing this, I looked up what position she's taken on immigration, which is a bigger issue in Ireland than I think, or in Europe than I think a lot of Americans realize. And she where I found that she was asked that question, she was careful in how she answered it. She made the point that under the terms of membership of the EU, Ireland is free to set its own immigration policy. But she tried, in order not to sound right-wing, to say, but she would hope that human rights are respected. So she gave a non-answer. She gave a very politician's answer when she was asked about this, which gives you an idea of how damaging this can be in Ireland if you answer it the wrong way.
It's damaging for everybody. Real quick, I won't go on long about this. It's a hard question. It's a hard question because it's an impossible issue.
Yeah, I'm not singling out the Irish.
No, I'm just saying
it's
an impossible issue to have a good answer on. I mentioned that in a few shows back. Under neoliberalism and under imperialism, you really can't have good, humane immigration policy. So it's kind of this fucking impossible question to answer. Jose got that question at the rally. I have that. We'll put that on camera when we drop that whole piece. But these are very, very difficult questions to answer. There's really no good answer, which is why it's easy for demagogues to beat up on people over it, because they're the ones who have a clear answer.
Right.
Most people of good politics and good conscience don't have an easy answer.
Well, like the demagogue who posted this, you can see the kind of language the poster uses. It's one of the reasons I wanted to pull this. I follow the conversation on the right, and a lot of people on the left don't. So this video has been floating around for a while, and it was shared pretty widely. But I suspect a lot of our audience has never seen it. And I think it's important to not only understand some of the results in Ireland, but to understand these results in Europe. So they went and they asked people in Galway what they thought the most popular boy's name was.
DSO in 2022, the most popular boy's name in Galway was Mohammed.
Oh, yeah. I read that somewhere, yeah.
Okay. Wasn't expecting that, but okay.
Wow. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, right. That's interesting.
Do you want to know what it was?
Yeah, actually.
It was Mohammed.
Mohammed? Oh my god, yeah, it was Mohammed. I knew that actually.
Fuck off. Wasn't Mohammed. In Galway. Mohammed.
Fuck off.
Oh, okay.
Do you want to know what it was?
Yes, please.
It was Mohammed.
Okay.
Okay.
Look surprised.
Really?
In Ireland?
In Ireland.
Well, that's crazy. Oh, that's crazy, yeah.
In Galway.
Crazy.
Not in Ireland.
Oh.
In Galway.
That's weird.
That surprised you?
Very interesting, yeah.
Really? That's surprising. Muhammad is the most common, huh?
All right. So all right. So, hey, again, the left needs to formulate a response to that that is not simply you're a racist and you're a bigot if you are from Ireland and you are discomfited by the idea that Muhammad is the most popular boy's name in Galway. Now, I come from New York City, which, as I've said, I think is the greatest example of an immigrant society working in the history of the world. So I'm not coming from a perspective that that can't work, that people from diverse backgrounds cannot come together and form something new where they respect each other's differences. I'm not saying it's always perfect or it always has been perfect, but I grew up with people from every part of the world, and it's a great way to grow up because it makes it almost impossible to lose sight of the basic humanity of all peoples when you've known people from every part of the world, every race and every religion since you were in nursery school. You've been with Africans, you've been with Koreans, you've been with Russians your entire life. The idea of growing up and saying, well, those people aren't human. How can you? You grew up with people from these places. So that's not where I'm coming from. But then again, New York was always a city of immigrants, and it's within a country where it is by definition a fusion of immigrant cultures, right? There is no America other than Native Americans. America is by definition that. When you start looking at these countries that have a blood and soil, to use the fascist term for a moment, connection to the land that they're on, where these people have these deep cultural ties to the literal place that they are, I think to ignore how powerful an emotional thing that can be for people, not just European people, all people. When you say to a leftist, these non-Western people are very angry about how Western culture is infiltrating their society, they get it right away. They're immediately sympathetic to that. Well, it's a human quality, and you cannot, if you don't want to empower the right wing, you have got to have a better response to it than you're a racist.
Oh, sure thing. What makes this such a powerful issue for the right wing is the fact that, as I've said before, there really is no good answer. What policy do you set? Like, what can you say? It's an issue that's downstream of bigger issues to the point where, it's just really impossible to come up with an answer that is as satisfying to people as, well, fuck them, keep them out, kick the ones out that are already here. Like, that's what the guy at the Jose rally wanted to hear. He didn't make a big thing out of it, but that's the answer a lot of people want to hear.
Right.
And unless you're willing to go there, it becomes a noose around your neck come campaign season. That's what I said. Like, the electoral space forces you to make certain tough decisions that you might not be comfortable with, that you might not feel are the right thing to do. You mentioned she sort of tried to toe the line on this. That's a very, very difficult line to walk, especially when out of the right wing, you're getting a very clear and understandable solution. Unambiguous on an issue that is this important. See, the reason why a lot of left of center, if you will, and where we put the center is debatable in any context, especially when you're comparing America to Europe and things like that. But it was easy for the sort of left of center position on this to hold when this issue ranked 8th, 9th, 10th in terms of where voters were thinking and how they were ranking the issues. When this is ranking first or second, and you got the Donald Trumps of the world talking about building a wall and mass deportations, and then you have occupying the entire space left of that, not necessarily even left wing, but anything left of that becomes very muddled and confusing, and it seems evasive in the mind of the average voter, and it becomes a very, very difficult thing to run against. I don't have an answer for it. I don't know how she could have been better on this. It seems like the Wagon X party just took a hard line and said, all right, we're just going to have to bite the bullet on that. That may be the short-term thing to do from a campaign standpoint. I don't know. It's really hard. Really, really hard.
It is. Ultimately, it is about foreign policy, as we discussed the other day. People don't want to leave their homes.
Right.
There are very few people who really hate their home, who really don't want to stay amongst the people they've known all their lives and the places that they're familiar with. They do that because they have to. They do that because you've created circumstances that leave them no other choice. Very few people are so adventurous. There are some people like that who would just hit the road looking for adventure. It's not most people. Most people just want to follow the local customs and get married and have their family according to the way that's done in whatever culture they're from, and live and die and live a pretty quiet life. If they're packing up and moving to Europe, which frankly many of them don't like culturally or not comfortable in, it's because they feel like they have to. So you want to answer it, I don't want to hear anybody talking about immigration who's not talking about foreign policy. Like that's, if you're talking about that and you're not addressing the reasons, you're not a serious person.
Exactly. Agreed. Timmy Ballgame. Seinfeld is just worried someone will dig up the story about his 17-year-old girlfriend. Well, that is out now. That's an open secret at this point.
I can't believe he got through Me Too without anyone bringing it up.
No judgment about that. Yeah. Yep. Zoran Vasilik, thanks for the 100 Serbian dollars, I assume. Keep on rocking, guys. Shout out from Serbia, F the EU. Thank you, Zoran. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Let's see here. Waiting for her to scream, bring out the fembots. Yes, indeed. Thank you. Serbia, the country U.S. and NATO bombed in 1999. That's right. That's right. Pericles Pie with a cake and a smiley face. Thank you for that. That's kind of you. $1 Million Trooper, you, the lib talking heads, have just given me a couple ideas for BDSM-themed Disney princess movies, which is a couple more ideas than Disney has had lately. There you go. Well, thank you for that very much. All right, folks, we are going to take a quick game break here now for a word from our sponsors. And by our sponsors, we, of course, mean all of you, our Patreon members. So if you like what we do here and you want to help support the show, you can do so by going to patreon.com/DoDissidents and becoming a member today. For as little as $5 a month, you get your name on the patron scroll here. You also get call-in access to our weekly post-show Q&As. You get 2 separate supporter streams per month, exclusive shows, full-length shows, interactive shows exclusively for our paid members. And you also can watch on demand our full live shows from New York City. That's right. Both of those live shows are up on Rumble as unlisted links right now, available exclusively for paid members. So if you join today, you get access to both of those full-length shows. We started dropping some short form clips from those today. We have a lot more that will be dropping in the coming days, so don't worry, we will get a lot of that stuff out there. But
if you go to Patreon, you can hear all the jokes that you will never hear on YouTube.
Exactly. As Russell may have noticed, I don't know if you got to watch any of the clips there. You know, some of the jokes had to die
there are some
on the
cuts
Rumble
there.
stream.
There are some cuts,
Yes, there were some cuts. So we had to cut around some stuff. So you get the full uncensored experience if you go to patreon.com/DoDissidents. You can also join our Substack at DoDissidents.substack.com. as well as locals, DoDissidents.locals.com. If you're watching on Rumble now, you can hit that bright red join button underneath the video player. That takes you to our locals. For just $5 a month, you get all of those perks, which are the same across all of those platforms. Our members are the backbone of the operation. You guys are what make this show possible. So thank you very much for your support. J.K. Michael 1167 says the first White House Correspondents' Dinner was in the 1920s. Someone should explain it to Nicole Wallace that U.S. democracy existed for 100 plus years before. That's right. She does believe more in the cocktail party variety of American democracy, for sure. This is interesting. Ken Minji, the anti-Zionist walking Jew you mentioned at the last episode, is named Jacob Berger. He's a former social worker turned actor and YouTube content creator.
Oh,
well, he would be a great guest.
We should totally have him on.
Yeah, he would be a killer guest. As would Clare Daly. I saw Dwayne Vogel. You said, we should have her on. We are kind of working on it. We did get an email this morning from someone who has a contact with their campaign manager, and she did bring it up. They're obviously very inundated with requests today, but we should have an answer according to this person. A shout out to Maya, by the way, for sending us this email. We should maybe have an answer by tomorrow. Not to say we're going to have her on tomorrow, but we should maybe have an answer, and then we can go from there. But yeah, obviously, I would love to have her on the show. Keaton, is your background a shower curtain? It's a high school yearbook backdrop curtain for the time being. I'm working on getting a bookshelf.
Yeah, I was going to break your balls, man.
On the break, because our weekend is coming up after tomorrow morning where we'll have a few days. I plan on getting the bookshelf in during that time. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I should have it for the Sunday show because we're having Brianna Joy Gray on Sunday. I got to have books by then. Otherwise, I'm really going to feel like the dumb one if I don't have any books. Because she's got books, Russell's got books. They're both smart, so I have to look the part.
Somebody said, and obviously I'm not talking about you, somebody said in comments, 2 out of 3 people here have Dune on their bookshelf. I didn't notice that she had Dune on her bookshelf.
Oh, yeah? That's interesting.
I'm going to have to, we're just going to, on Sunday, we're just going to talk about Dune.
Yeah, do some sci-fi material. Yeah. Exactly. Let's see.
All hail Shai Halud.
YouTube Frontline 2 Sides documentary on college protests. Interesting. All right. Thank you, Yadira Ramirez. Appreciate that recommendation. Okay. Let's move on. We got some more stuff to do today, of course. John Fetterman went on Bill Maher last week and explained how the progressive movement left him. He didn't change. Progressivism changed. Here he is.
What is that distinction? Because I'm sorry. You said, I'm not a progressive, I'm a Democrat. What does that mean? What is that distinction? Because I don't think I've used the word progressive. I think I've said woke. I think there's a big difference between woke, and I know that word triggers a lot of people because it had a great beginning as a meaning, but words migrate, and it went to something else. I think there's a big difference between an old school liberal and a woke person. You say progressive Democrat. How do you describe this?
I'm sure he's going to give a very articulate answer. This is a great question to ask this guy.
Very well-reasoned answer.
Yes, I'm sure this is going to blow your mind.
No, I agree. It's like I've just say, and I've been saying that for years, actually. I said that, I didn't leave the label. It left me on that.
Right.
And that really, after it happened on October 7th, I really knew that that whole progressive stack would be blasted apart, and there's not going to be any kind of way how the Democrats are going to be able to reply to that kind of...
Right, because you're going to side with the genociders, right? So that it's going to cause a rift there, right? Because I'm going to have to back the white colonial genocidal state, and that's not going to that's going to make it hard for me to pass off as a progressive, right?
Respond to that kind of, and I really decided early on that I believed that was going to be the right side with Israel throughout all of that, and I knew that would going to be Democrats would continue to peel away and kind of walk away from standing with Israel on that. But that's where I decided after.
How do you explain that, if you can, that the people who consider themselves the most liberal have abandoned Israel, which was always a liberal darling.
Okay, we don't need to get into that again. Going down that road. That's his thing, man. He's over and over again.
The liberal apartheid state.
Yeah, exactly.
First of its kind.
Yeah. So there's John Fetterman disowning the progressive label, saying progressivism, the label left me. Well, he's not alone. Here's Ritchie Torres gave a lengthy print interview to City and State New York Magazine, The Evolution of Ritchie Torres. I didn't leave the progressive movement left me. Almost the exact same language. To anyone closely paying attention, Torres has long established he's not a lockstep progressive, but the Israel-Hamas war has made Torres' stance appear new, or at least the issue he has been the most public on since going after disgraced former Representative George Santos. Torres, who rattled off his receipts displaying his progressive pedigree, was blunt in his assessment of the progressive movement these days. It's not what it used to be. I didn't leave the progressive movement left me, Torres said. What has become of the progressive movement is far more radicalized than what I knew back in 2013, Torres said. I love this quote. The moment I knew was far more... The movement that I knew was far more pragmatic. The progressive movement of today is indistinguishable from the democratic socialists of America. Too radical for him, the democratic socialists of America.
Hey. We clap, goddammit.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. That's right. Don't brand us like that. What he's referring to, though, is the fact that the DSA organized that October 8th protest in Times Square that Russell filmed, which they got a lot of shit for organizing that the day after October 7th. But that's what really caused this major split between Ritchie Torres and the DSA, because Ritchie Torres in 2016 made the very courageous move to endorse Bernie Sanders the day of the New York primary. Didn't do it before.
Oh, wow.
He wanted that endorsement to last about 3.5 hours. So he did it the day of.
Yeah. Didn't someone else do that?
I'm not sure. I think you're talking about AOC endorsing Cori Bush the night before her primary. That's the very last second, waiting till the last possible second to do it. So, he has tried to walk this line while obviously not being all that convincing in the role to anybody who is paying too much mind to this. Whether that will be his political albatross remains to be seen. Torres is up for re-election in November, and no significant challenger has emerged.
Where the fuck do you get the balls?
Well, we hope to have something to say about that. He's keeping any future runs quiet for now, though a recent New York Post story suggested he's mulling a gubernatorial run in the future. Okay, now I got to hit this one. Busy. You're killing me, Richie. My soundboard hand's getting tired because of this article. Yeah.
So help me God, I will volunteer for the Republican.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. He'll never be. He will never win. Never win. For now, Torres jokingly says he is looking for a higher calling. One of my constituents asked me, are you moving up?
Put a chicken in it, make her gay.
Do you hope to move up? Torres recalled. And I said, yes, I hope to go to heaven. Can you put in a good word? That was funny. So he's not alone. He's not alone. Here's the great things come in threes, right? So here's Mondaire Jones, the progressive who was the odd man out in the musical chairs game that Sean Patrick Maloney forced in 2022 by changing districts. Mondaire Jones ended up losing his district and losing his seat. But he's running again in New York 17th against, what's the guy's name? Lawler, who beat Sean Patrick Maloney that year. So Mondaire Jones endorses Westchester County Executive George Latimer over Representative Jamal Bowman in Democratic primary. Here's why. Why do you think? Give you 3 guesses. Congressman Jamal Bowman's former ally Mondaire Jones is now endorsing Westchester County Executive George Latimer in the heated Democratic primary for New York's 16th Congressional District. George is the clear choice to represent New York's 16th Congressional District, Jones said Tuesday at an endorsement event in Tarrytown. Half the village is in New York's 16th Congressional District and half is in the 17th Congressional District. Westchester County is split between the 2 districts. Latimer is challenging Bowman in the 16th. Jones, a former Bowman ally, cites Bowman's criticism of Israel as a big factor in his decision to endorse Latimer. Okay, so one of the things that makes this particularly offensive to people is that Mondaire Jones, despite what he's going to say in this next video, did position himself as a squad-adjacent progressive member of the House. He got a ton of support from the Bernie Sanders wing of the party back when it still was a real wing of the party. And now, obviously, he really showing that progressive accept for Israel issue, right? Really, you could see that embodied in Jones here because he is making this Israel-Gaza war the thing on which he hinged not only the direction of his campaign, but his endorsement. I mean, why would he intervene on behalf of George Latimer? He doesn't have to chime in on this, but he is. So here he is.
Fascinating dynamic, because I think that I want to quote Cori Bush, a member of the squad, who said, you were squad adjacent when you came into Congress.
Not only was I never squad adjacent, I was always a pragmatist and an independent voice for my values. And in this latest example, this thing that has outraged some members of the squad and I guess some members of the progressive caucus writ large is standing on my values. So specifically, I endorsed George Latimer in the primary against Representative Jamal Bowman in the 16th Congressional District. This is a district that is adjacent to the one I am seeking to represent again. I grew up in these communities. I used to represent over 100,000 people who were in the 16th Congressional District where I just endorsed. And people in that district and in mine and throughout the lower Hudson Valley share in how horrified I have been by Mr. Bowman's conduct since the events of October 7th. One of the things that stands out to me is that he denied that Hamas committed sexual assault against Israeli women on October 7th. He dismissed it as propaganda. Recently, he doubled down on that extremism when he accepted the endorsement of the Democratic Socialists of America, whose New York City chapter amplified a pro-Hamas rally the day after the worst assault on Jews since the Holocaust. I've known George Latimer for years. I worked in his administration. He's a unifier. He's going to bring people together. And it's unfortunate that people would disagree with me on that.
Well,
just not Palestinian people.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Exactly. So there you have his whole line. Sounds very, very Ritchie Torres like there. And now here he is talking about the extremism within his own party as represented by the progressives.
Expediency, I'm looking at Mr. Lawler, who, when it comes to political expediency, I'm looking at Mr. Lawler, who refuses to stand up to the former president of the United States, a guy who's now been convicted of 34 felony counts. I'm standing up to extremists in my party. Where is Mike Lawler doing that? On the flip side, I think it's really important that if we're going to ask Republicans to stand up to the extremes in their party, that we be willing to do that ourselves. And so I'm standing on that. I'm standing with my Jewish constituents, and I'm fully comfortable with organizations withdrawing their support, whatever that support looked like in the first place, on the theory that we have to go in a different direction as a party, and we have to get extremism out and unify people moving forward.
What a disgusting man. I mean, what a lowlife. I mean, this was, people who remember Mondaire Jones remember him as part of that Bernie coalition within the party that we all had such high hopes were going to take over. And now you can see, because he's running in Westchester, what did we say? This is why I said Bowman's likely to lose in Westchester. I said this before a single poll came out, he was likely to lose there, because that is, you're talking about a lot of big money Zionists there. Who carry tremendous weight both in northern Westchester, which is where Jones is running, and southern Westchester, which is where Bowman is running. And you could see he is such a whore that he's willing to make that move to go as far as endorsing Latimer over Bowman because he thinks it'll help him in his own district. We got more. Scoop. This is from a few months ago from Axios. More members have left the Progressive Caucus. So, of course, the Congressional Progressive Caucus charges, I think, $400 to get in. That's all you have to do is pay a due, and you get to call yourself a progressive. Now, of course, whatever can be bought can be sold. So it shouldn't be all that surprising that if you bought your way into the Progressive Caucus, you will sell yourself out from that caucus when AIPAC writes you a larger check. Okay, but this is from a few months ago. At least 2 additional members besides Ritchie Torres, who left in February, and Lois Frankel, who I had never heard of, have left the Congressional Progressive Caucus in recent months, Axios has learned. Why it matters. The caucus's membership has...
As goes Frankel, so goes the country.
Yeah, exactly. Pulls a lot of weight there. The caucus's membership has swelled in the last few election cycles to encompass nearly half the Democratic caucus, a key marker of strength for Democrats' left flank. No, it was never a key marker of strength. You could call yourself a progressive for a few $100s.
Fucking Jeffries.
Yes.
Is in the Progressive Caucus, or he was. I don't know if he still is.
He still is. He still is, because he still wants to have it both ways, especially since he's the head of the party now. What they're saying...
Did you hear, not to digress into another segment, but did you hear James Carville's sage wisdom on who could replace Biden?
No.
Hakeem Jeffries.
Oh, for president? Yeah, that would be fun. Yeah. That would be a great time. I would love that. I would love to see that, actually.
He wants to see him do the alphabet game on a national stage.
Yeah, right, exactly. This guy's crazy. Cut him off. He's past 3 minutes. He's going A, B, C, D. That's it.
Cut his mic. Is this Sesame Street? I thought it was a debate. I already know my ABCs, Hakeem.
Thank you. I already know my ABCs very well. Nobody knows their ABCs better than me. Yeah, that would be something. All right, so this is interesting. What they're saying, Representatives Ruben Gallego and Zoe Lofgren both confirmed to Axios that they allowed their membership in the caucus to lapse. So Ruben Gallego, who's a congressman who's running for Senate, formerly against Kristen Sinema, now she dropped out, so his only opponent there is Carrie Lake. Gallego, who is running for a hotly contested Senate seat in Arizona, said he left because the prices went up. Look at this lying fucking douchebag. The prices went up on the dues lawmakers must pay for membership. His departure was
This
first
fucking
reported.
scumbag douchebag.
Yeah. The prices went up. That's his line. We don't even need to read the rest of that. I want to show Ruben Gallego was one of the 42 House Democrats to help the GOP pass the bill targeting ICC officials over Israel. So Ruben Gallego voted here, cited in Common Dreams. Tuesday's vote has already had consequences as the youth-led progressive group Path to Progress said it would not endorse Representatives Ruben Gallego and Elissa Slotkin as expected in the respective U.S. Senate races due to their approval of the bill. Ruben Gallego voted to sanction the ICC. Ruben Gallego is an international outlaw. Okay, and he's going to try and fucking spin this fucking bullshit that it was because it got too expensive. What a sleaze. What a fucking lying scumbag, douchebag sleaze. You don't even have the balls to do what Mondaire Jones did, which is, I'm with Israel, and so I can't call myself this anymore. This fucking guy tries to blame it on the fact that they charged the prices went up $80? I don't know what, it used to be $400. What is it, $800 now? You're going to try and blame it on that? What a slime ball. But you could see this. The Progressive Caucus was always a joke. It was always pay to play. You buy your way in.
Sure.
If you can buy your way in,
meant
you
anything.
can sell your way out. And that's what's happened. Now this label means nothing anymore. We could tell this. We said even a few years back, because don't forget, in 2016, we all wanted to call ourselves progressives. That was the battle. Progressives versus centrists. Then a few years later, we're like, well, wait a minute. If they're letting Hakeem Jeffries call himself a progressive for $400, what does this term even mean anymore? Right? It just means they'll back out as soon as they have to. And here you have in droves Democrats saying, oh, no, I'm not a progressive anymore. Not me. And this Israel thing is what really blew that up. But something was going to do it. These are just sellouts. These are just bloodless creatures who will do anything. They will chase whoever dangles a dollar bill in front of their head, as these people have all proven.
Yeah, well, Thomas Massey, we did that at the live show in his interview with Tucker, talked about, he said he didn't know on the Democrat side, but he said on the GOP side, they all have an AIPAC person. So I'm quite sure if that's true on the GOP side, it's probably doubly true on the Democrat side. They definitely have an AIPAC person handling them on the Democrat side.
They probably have more AIPAC persons because they probably need them more. Because this support for Israel is kind of at odds with liberal branding in ways that it's not at odds with conservative branding. So they probably have the heavier hitters going after, especially in New York for obvious reasons, these Democrats, who I promise you do not give a shit about Israel. They don't give a shit about Jews. You think Hakeem Jeffries and Ritchie Torres and Mondaire Jones give a fuck about Israel? They give a fuck about who pays them. They're just the lowest scum on the planet. They really are.
Well, that's why they have to lean so heavily on the racism narrative, because that's within the liberal brand.
Right.
That's their answer to everything. Well, if you're against what I'm for, you're a racist. That's their comfort zone. But it's a very hard sell when the people being slaughtered are brown and the people doing the slaughtering are mostly white Europeans. But they're trying their damnedest to define it that way. What's also clear that this is an order is, and you pointed this out, how similar their language is. Whenever you see that, it's coming from the same source.
I didn't leave it, it left me, right?
Yep. AIPAC told them, hey, we'd like it if you left the Progressive Caucus and made a point that it's become too extreme. It's become too radical. Whenever you see a bunch of them all do this at the same exact time with the same exact language, that's an order. They got a call and they were told to do this. And this is yet one more reason why we've abandoned party politics. This yet one more reason. They're going to tell you, no, look, there's a progressive caucus that represents you.
Yeah, right.
There's a bunch of fucking whores chasing a dollar. They liked the progressive label. They thought it worked for them, like Hakeem Jeffries.
Right.
Why would Hakeem Jeffries join the Progressive Caucus? Well, he's already got the real estate money. He's got all the Wall Street money. He's got all that tied up. Well, let me brand myself progressive so I can get in on some of that constituency.
Yep. Exactly.
For most of these people, it's just a pose. And even for the ones who aren't, we saw with the infrastructure bill, it doesn't really matter anyway. As soon as they twist their arm, these people mostly voted to expand Trump's spying powers.
Right.
When he was president, they vote for every military bill. They vote for every military funding bill. So what does that mean? You're in the Progressive Caucus. So it was very easy for them to leave. Now, the only political risk for some of them may be backlash among genuine progressives who are horrified by Gaza. I would imagine, I know this is true in Bowman's district, I would imagine most of these districts have more Zionists than legit leftists.
Yes, I would say, well, yes, that is certainly true in both of their cases, both Mondaire Jones and Jamal Bowman. That's certainly true, no doubt. All right, we got one more segment that we got to do because it's time sensitive, but let's take some super chats here.
Not true of Torres, though.
No, that's not true of Torres.
we found on the streets of the Bronx.
That's right. That's right. That's what makes the Jose campaign a sort of unique opportunity there, for sure. The answer is very simple. Tell the truth. The data bears out that militarism and policing are incapable of solving immigration and imperialism. Oh, I agree. I mean, I agree, but that doesn't necessarily deal with the immediate here and now. You know what I mean? Like, to reverse that policy is years long. People want to know what's going to happen right now to the migrants who are being put up in the Roosevelt Hotel. You know, like, people want an answer about what's going to happen today. And there is no easy answer for that.
I mean, honestly, and obviously, this is not a solution for today. We should be paying reparations to the countries we've destroyed.
Yeah. No, we need a UN body for the Western Hemisphere. You know, something like that with actual teeth. Yeah. Yep.
Yes.
Kevin McAllister, fun name. Is that your real name, or are you named after Home Alone? Immigration has gotten way out of hand in Ireland, but I'm very disappointed Clare Daly won't be representing Ireland and all the decent folk everywhere. Yes. Well, I'm sure she will still make a ton of noise. She's very good at that. RBGH fam, I agree. Immigration and war are attached. I wish people could see that fiat currency causes war. It triggers cronyism rather than normal boom-bust cycles. Thank you, RBGH fam. Funny how people spend so much time deriding the paternalism of PMC liberals, have the position that people are too dumb to understand immigration. Not dumb. Not dumb. People have short-term interests. You know, most people have short-term interests that they want met, you know. People are not going to vote on theory. People do not vote on theory. They vote on what's happening right now. Right now. If prices are up right now, they want them down right now. If there are immigrants in the hotel right now, they want them out of the hotel right now. It's that swings. That is very, very powerful. And it's not about people being stupid. This is just ordinary people. That's it.
Right. And if there are limited job openings at the bottom of the economic ladder, right. People are going to feel threatened by immigrants. But let's deal in reality rather than platitudes. Most Americans don't know shit about foreign policy. Now, that is partly because of our geographic circumstances, but it's also partly a failing of our media, an intentional failing in many cases, to really not inform Americans about foreign policy. So for the most part, they really don't know. They really don't know why these immigrants are coming here. They don't understand how much complicity our government, and not only now, but historically has for destabilizing these countries. They really don't know. And that's not because they're stupid. They're uninformed. You have to make some effort to learn these things. Most people they're busy, man. They're trying to survive. They're trying to feed their families. They don't have time to break open some 3-volume book about South America.
Yeah, no, 100%. 100%. Everyone should read The Dispossessed and Forever War, says Movie Mass 7654.
That keeps getting recommended, yeah.
Torres, Gov, hell to the no. This is why we must make New York State a citizen ballot of initiative. Thank you, Roger Meadows. State for amendments so we can ratify our own amendments to New York State Constitution. Thank you, Roger. Appreciate you. All right, we got one more segment that we got to do today. Here's some news. This kind of got lost in the sauce a little bit, but this seems pretty important to me. Russian military exercises in the Caribbean. Here's what to expect. This is a bit of an older article, but we have an update that we'll share with you in just a moment. 3 Russian ships and a nuclear-powered submarine are expected to arrive in Cuba this week. This was written last week, so they're here, ahead of military exercises in the Caribbean. It's amazing. This was not reported. This was not that widely reported because generally the take on this is that you're a paranoid lunatic if you are at all worried about this. Routine, nothing to see here. While the exercises aren't considered a threat to the U.S., American ships have been deployed to shadow the Russians, U.S. officials told CBS News. The Russian warships are expected to arrive in Havana on Wednesday and stay until next Monday, Cuba's foreign ministry said in a statement. A U.S. official told CBS News national security correspondent David Martin that the U.S. intelligence community has assessed that the submarine in the group is nuclear-powered, but it isn't carrying nuclear weapons. We have no indication and no expectation that nuclear weapons will be at play here in these exercises or embarked on those vessels, White House National Security spokesman John Kirby told CBS senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe last week. Wow, that was a hell of a sentence. They don't have copywriters there? Jesus. According to the Cuban Foreign Ministry, the 3 Russian ships are a frigate. Is that how you say that?
Frigate.
A frigate. See, I knew I was going to get that wrong. A fleet oil tanker and a salvage tug. The 3 ships and submarine were heading across the Atlantic separately, U.S. official told Martin. Yeah, I never heard that word before. 2 American destroyers. Yeah, no, never heard that one. No. 2 American destroyers and 2 ships that now that tow sonar equipment behind them are shadowing the submarine, the U.S. official told Martin. Another destroyer and a U.S. Coast Guard cutter are shadowing the 3 Russian ships. The ship's arrival in Havana, which the Cuban Foreign Ministry said is expected to include the fanfare of 1 Russian ship firing 21 salvos in a salute to Cuba, comes ahead of Russia carrying out air and naval exercises in the Caribbean in the coming weeks, a different U.S. official told Martin. The exercises, which will include long-range bombers, will be the first simultaneous air and naval maneuvers Russia has carried out in the Caribbean since 2019, the U.S. official said. The exercises will be conducted over the summer, culminating in a worldwide naval exercise in the fall. Clearly, this is them signaling their displeasure about what we're doing for Ukraine, Kirby told O'Keefe. So we're going to watch it. We're going to monitor it. It's not unexpected, but we don't expect that there will be any imminent threat or any threat at all, quite frankly, to American national security in the region, in the Caribbean region, or anywhere else. The U.S. official told Martin the ships may also visit Venezuela. So here they are coming in. Several Russian warships have just arrived at Havana Harbor and docked there. Several ships and support vessels are expected to participate in exercises and possibly make port calls in Venezuela and Cuba. The move occurs following the U.S. approval of Ukraine using NATO-supplied weapons to strike inside Russia. Putin stated that Moscow might supply weapons to certain regions to examine strikes against sensitive
to enable
Western
strikes against sensitive Western targets.
There you go.
If Ukraine repeatedly attacks Russia with Western arms.
There you go. See, Russell's got good eyes. He's got very good eyes. You don't even need eyeglasses most of the time. Yeah.
Most of the time now.
So, yeah, I mean, look, I guess this is routine, right? That's what we are supposed to think. No harm here. But it's definitely a flex, and the timing of this is certainly indicative of a certain escalation in tension. Yeah, it is a statement, and it is consistent with the statements that Putin has been making recently, which is that you're pushing it. You Americans, you're pushing me. I mean, we did a whole thing last week about their reasserting that they do have a certain red line past which point, nuclear exchange is on the table. And so this is a gesture now in the Western Hemisphere. And Thank God. We can hope to God it doesn't escalate past this point, because if there is a Cuban Missile Crisis 2.0, whether that occurs under Trump or Biden, neither of them are JFK. Neither of them are people you would trust
Neither
to
of them are
navigate
steady
that.
hands on the till.
Exactly. Right. You're talking about a demented freak and, just sideshow circus clown, possibly, in a match of wits against Putin with nuclear missiles in our hemisphere. That's not good. Believe me, not good. And that is part of why I think Putin is able to make these kinds of shows of force, because the West is just seen as so unserious right now. Where he could do this right now, and he looks like the guy who's putting his foot down. He knows that nothing we do in response to this, even if this is all just like dick waving, nothing we do in response is going to look as serious as this. I think that's part of why he's doing it.
All the momentum is on the side that Russia represents. All the momentum is on the BRICS side. I would say you are looking at an inevitable swing of the center of gravity in world affairs from the United States to this BRICS alliance. This is the early stages of that swing, but it's really unimaginable when you look at the level of just decadence and societal collapse and economic vapors upon which our whole economy is based. Just absolute illusion and fantasy. Something's got to break. There's only so long these plates can stay in the air before they come crashing down. The Chinese, the Russians, the Venezuelans, these are much more serious people than the West is. The West is living on treasures that it stole a long time ago, and it is only maintaining its hold on those treasures with force. And that's not going to be enough in the long run. No, Putin is not just going to willy-nilly drop a nuke in spite of what they want to tell you. He's a rational actor, but he's going to continue to do what he's doing. He's going to continue to build alliances against Western hegemony. He's going to continue to really hit at the heart of our power, which is the dollar as the reserve currency, increasingly successfully. They just announced last week their new payment system. North Korea wants to join this bloc. That's an interesting question, what they'll do with that. But you combine all of these BRICS countries, and as they work out how to get around the West, we're not in any position as a society to really withstand that kind of a sustained assault on the premises of Western power. In the end, they'll win. It's only a question of how long it takes.
Yep. Agreed. Omer Barovic. I have solutions for global immigration. Habibi, come to Germany. There we go. Thank you. Are you there? Are you in Germany? What is that? Is that what is the A there? The $5. I don't know what currency that is, but thank you. Thank you for the invite. All right, everybody. I believe that is our show today. Thank you all very much for being here. We are on Morning Dew tomorrow, 9 a.m. on YouTube and Rumble. That's right. We are coming back at you in the morning before our weekend. We got some fun stuff planned for tomorrow. We want to thank you all very much for being here today. Hit that like button on the way out. Hit that follow button over on Rumble. Hit that subscribe button here on YouTube on the way out. Just 183 likes over on Rumble. People tend to neglect the Rumble like button. So hit that like button on the way out, please. And over here on YouTube, we got anything else, Russell, or are we good?
I think we are good.
All right. We are all set. Folks, thank you very much for being here. We appreciate you very much. We will see you tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Eastern for Morning Dew, 2 p.m., 3 p.m. over in Europe, wherever you guys are watching from or anywhere around the world. That is our morning show tomorrow here on the East Coast and early morning on the West Coast. We will see you all then. Thank you all very much for being here today. Until we see you again, be safe and be well.
Courage.
Please clap.